Before we start today's episode, a bit of housekeeping for all those listeners out there. Whichever your podcast listening platform of choice, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, reviews can make a huge impact. So not only do we value your feedback, which can help us create better content, it will also help others discover the podcast. So spread the love and leave a review if you've got a minute. And with that, on with today's show. I'm the Reverend Dr. Jenny McKay, veterinarian and minister in secular employment, environmentalist, activist, and self-confessed cat junkie. But believe it or not, I have never been turned down for an appearance on the hit children's TV show, Barney and Friends. Someone who has, sadly, is my guest, radio, TV and podcast presenter, Anne-Marie Wallace. Hi, Anne-Marie.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. So excited to be speaking with you.
I'm really looking forward to chatting to you. This is my first time being a guest on a podcast, so I'm so excited.
So can you tell me a bit about your near brush with that famous purple dinosaur as a child? And have you ever recovered from the snub?
The dinosaur that cannot be named. Yes, old Barney the dinosaur. So whenever I was in primary school down in St Mary's Primary School in Newcastle, a TV producer, I suppose, came into our classroom and said, we're going to be recording an episode of Barney down in Tullymore Forest Park, and we're looking for some girls to come and be part of it, some of the kids, because I went to an all-girls primary school. And I was like, oh, this is so exciting. And I don't really remember the audition process, but I think we probably had to say a few lines, maybe do a bit of a dance just to perform and see if we were natural, maybe in front of a camera. And I didn't get picked. And it was the first, I'd never really thought about ever being in media or TV or radio or anything like that before. But it was the first time I thought, oh, somebody like us could be on TV. And also the first time I'd had that terrible rejection.
But you did recover.
Well, I did recover, but the worst of it was we then had to go and watch the episode. So once it was made, my four girls in the class got picked. They went away, recorded down in Tullymore Forest Park, and then some months later, you know, the big TV, whenever you're a kid in primary school, was wheeled in. So it was wheeled in, so you knew it was exciting. And then they put in the video and on came Barney, and I had to sit and seethe for half an hour while I watched my friends have their stardom. It's terrible.
Oh, that's really hard to watch, isn't it?
No, and we're very good as well. But it just, you just, the fact that I said, like, oh, well done. I had to have a poker face on at the age of 8.
Very gracious. But you have had even more success than Barney the Dinosaur, I would say, because you won the Irish Podcast Awards last November. And for those people not fortunate enough to be already listening to the podcast, All Right Pet, which you host with veterinary surgeon Rob Adams on BBC Radio Ulster, tell us what the show is about.
Well, so All Right Pet, I was having a chat with one of our editors, a guy called Paul McLean, one day, and he was saying, like, what are you into? What do you like? And I said, well, I like music and, you know, I like cars and obviously I like animals. And he was like, oh, have you ever thought about doing a pet podcast? Because I think we could do a pet podcast for BBC Sounds. There isn't really anything like that on BBC Sounds at the minute. And I was like, oh, that would be great. And he said, well, look, try and find a vet, maybe find somebody that's not from Northern Ireland, so it doesn't sound too Northern Irish, and you know, somebody you might have a bit of a rapport with. And I thought, okay, well, all my vets at the practice that I take my dogs to, they were all Northern Irish. And I thought, right, okay. So I looked up vets in Northern Ireland, male vets in Northern Ireland as well. And Rob's picture came up near the top. Now, I've got to say, Rob is quite easy on the eye. And I thought, oh, right, who's this fella? So I phoned up the veterinary surgery that he worked for at the time, and he's not a first opinion vet. He's actually a specialist vet. He's a surgeon. Okay. So I hadn't really realised that at the time. I just got really lucky that I phoned up the veterinary surgery. The strange woman saying, hello, can I just check? You see your vet, Rob Adams. Is he from anywhere other than Northern Ireland? Is he from England, Scotland or Wales? And the girl was like, what? Anyway,
question.
He did phone me back the next day, and he's from sort of the between Wales and England, so he fits two of the, the provinces, and he was like, "Yeah, let's give it a go." So we did a pilot, and Rob was just incredibly talented. Immediately, he was really good in front of a microphone. He wasn't nervous. He was full of really interesting information. He was really funny. He would just make you sick. He's just one of those people that's good at everything. But we seemed to work quite well together, and we made the pilot for our editor, Paul, and he liked it. And so we made 6 of them and put them up on BBC Sounds. And so really we can do whatever we want. We have quite free rein to do what we want. So we took some calls in that first series from people who had queries about their animals. We did a celebrity interview. So we did, I think our first celebrity was Dom Jolly, who was incredibly funny. He was really good. The stuff about the pigs was wonderful. He had a couple of pet pigs. Then Rob will maybe chat about some surgeries that he's carried out and interesting information from that side as well. And there'll be a bit of chit chat between he and I, maybe things that I've heard. Is it true? Is it not? And then a couple of packages about anything and everything from wild animals to hamsters to snakes, whatever takes our fancy.
It's great, isn't it? And like you say, you've got a great rapport together, I think.
Yeah, do you know, I really got very lucky with Rob. He is a lovely guy. He's very giving. I'm very silly, and he is the sensible one in many ways. And yet he's also really funny, but I need to reined in sometimes, and he is the perfect foil for that. And it's just, I think when I listen back to him, I'm surprised at how relaxed he sounds in front of a microphone, because you know yourself, you don't always feel relaxed in front of a microphone. You might be having a bad day, but no matter how tired Rob is, and sometimes he has to record All Right Pet after doing 12 hours of pretty dramatic surgeries, and he still is as calm and lovely as he is if he's had a nice weekend, you know?
Oh, that's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the listeners really must listen to All Right Pet. Absolutely. Because you had some really, really good guests, Martin Clunes, Eamon Holmes and Carol Baskin.
Yeah.
Have you had a particular favourite?
They've all been wonderful. I think 2 that really stick out for me, a guy called Niall Harbison. I'm sure you probably follow him on social media anyway, Jenny, but he's the guy from County Tyrone who moved to Koh Samui and has been helping rescue the street dogs there. There's 10,000 street dogs in Koh Samui alone. And what he's been doing is he's been picking them up and sterilising them to try and stop the never-ending puppy cycle. And he marks them with a couple of dots in their ears so he knows he's been sterilised. But between him and the volunteers, I think they feed 800 dogs a day out in the streets and give them medicine and check on them. And he's just fascinating because he nearly died. He went out to live this sort of very bohemian lifestyle and he nearly died. He just really reassessed his life and spends his entire life now rescuing and looking after dogs. And he's actually building a hospital that's going to be free for the people in Koh Samui who don't really have very much. There's going to be this huge hospital and it's going to be named after one of the dogs, Tina, that he rescued, who was really a very special golden retriever. And there's something about Niall Harbison that just really gets you every time he posts a video in the morning. I'm up by about 6:30. And the first thing I do is go on to social media and I watch his little videos. And even if they're sad, it just gets me in the right frame for the rest of the day.
Oh, it's such a good thing to do. I know I find that one of the most heartbreaking things, seeing pets on the streets.
Yeah.
And as you say, puppy cycles, cat cycles, if they're not neutered, it's just horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably the same as me. You probably grew up just rescuing and finding every stray cat, dog, bird that was going.
Oh yes. And then when I was a vet as well, in practice, people would leave things on the vet doorstep.
Yeah,
like a hamster. Somebody left 2 hamsters on the vet practice doorstep, and the vet nurse, interestingly, she gave me the big fat one because she said, "Oh, he's a lovely, lovely hamster." And Florence was absolutely adorable. But the vet nurse gave her to me because she thought that she was pregnant. But in actual reality, it was a little skinny one that was. So
oh, no way. And did you keep the hamster?
I did.
Oh,
She had a double-story house, and she really loved chocolate liqueur in the evening. So I'd let her suck on a chocolate liqueur, and then she would stagger up the little ladder up to the top story of her house and go to sleep.
oh, well, that's good because they're nocturnal, aren't they? So at least that got out of the way, so she wasn't keeping you awake on her wheel all night. That's brilliant. But this is it, you just like growing up, my daddy would have always wanted to feed the birds, and I remember the first time I had a real interaction with a wild animal was with a robin, and I had some raisins in my hand, and the little robin, because you know how cheeky they are anyway, the robin came and stood on my fingers while I fed it the little raisins, and I thought,
that's lovely,
that's
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh. So which celebrity would you most like to interview to find out about their pets?
Oh, every series I send an email asking for Ricky Gervais because I do. But I know he's quite loud and raucous, but I love the fact that he just has so much time for animals. He does so much on social media for animals as well. He's always reposting stuff and highlighting different issues, and I know he's involved with several charities. And I just think he's an interesting character. And also, again, a wee bit like trying to get Rob. I'm quite partial to Keanu Reeves, quite like him. And
I can sympathise with that, yes.
Just seems like a really, really decent man, and he loves animals, and he has animals. And I thought, I'd like to, I'd like to chat to Keanu Reeves. Hasn't happened yet, but they would be on my list.
I think if people like animals, it's a very, very good sign, isn't it?
Yeah, like you immediately warm to them, don't you?
You do. But as you said, you do work with Rob, and he's offering the pet advice on the podcast, both to your celebrities and your listeners. What for you has been one of the more memorable stories from listener questions?
Well, there was a very memorable story. Rob has so many memorable stories because he's a surgeon and because he deals with so many unusual stories. But I remember him telling me about a cat called Cinnamon, who had turned up, had gone to first opinion practice and then been sent to him. And they had diagnosed that Cinnamon had, you're going to have to keep me writing this, Jenny, here. So urethral rupture.
Okay. Oh, painful. Nasty.
Yes. So they thought that am I allowed to say the word penis?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, his penis had been detached from his pelvis. They think he'd been kicked when he'd gone into somebody else's garden. He'd been kicked. I know. And instead of, you think that you or I or whoever had some sort of kick to the pelvic area would be quite vocal. But actually, Cinnamon had gone very quiet. Rob says that often animals do become very quiet and don't let you know, really. They're not screaming in pain. But then they shaved the fur, and he was covered in bruising. He was just a mess. So so he had to perform to make him more comfortable. They had to perform, first of all, a flank cystotomy.
Oh, very good.
Okay.
Yeah, cystotomy, yes.
Right. So is this where they
opening into the bladder?
Yes, to release the urine that wasn't coming out.
Yes, that's correct.
Excellent. I could have been a vet.
Well done. You're the vet on the show.
The next bit I'm definitely not going to get right. But then in the end, what he had to do was he had to create another opening. So he had to create a perineal
urethral.
Yes.
Opening.
Say it.
Perineal urethral opening.
Yes. So basically Cinnamon had to be changed from a male cat to a female cat, basically. Effectively.
Yeah.
And I thought, isn't that fascinating? Because you think how much veterinary medicine has moved on, the things that can be done now, even for things like pugs. Every time, and we talk about is it brachycephalic animals, the ones with the little snub noses that have
flat faces.
Yeah, that have the real difficulty breathing, especially in hot weather. And it's incredible that now these little animals, these little pugs in particular, can have nose jobs so that they can be allowed to breathe more easily. It's just incredible. Or cataract operations, all these things that you wouldn't expect to happen.
Hip replacements, and cancer treatments. I mean, I had a cat and she had intestinal
Uh,
cancer, and we put her on chemotherapy.
mm-hmm.
And they don't suffer as much as humans. They don't, because we have to give them quite low doses.
Yes.
So it's not as overtly toxic as humans, but she coped with it very well and she survived. When people were saying, oh, why would you put your cat through chemotherapy? But, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
When they're not suffering and there's a good chance of recovery, it's worth going for it.
Oh, I totally agree. Funny, I was having this conversation. I've had this conversation with Rob and also with my vet whenever my dog, Rusty, he jumped off. He was a greyhound, a lovely tan greyhound, and he jumped off the sofa and his leg snapped in half. And he had to be brought to the vets,
Right.
And it turned out he had bone cancer, and so we decided to get the leg removed. And I thought, well, we'll give it a go, because if it was my child, I would do that.
Yes.
So I will try for Rusty and see, because they were saying, look, we can do this, and he could still have another year and live quite happily. So I thought, well, we'll give it a go. In the end, 10 days later, he did actually pass away because he had the secondary issues then, and there was a problem with the circulation. But he was actually recovering quite well from the loss of the leg. But it's that thing of, as you say, it's whereas people when they receive chemotherapy, they get blasted because the doctor patient conversation can happen.
Yes, they know, don't
yes.
you can discuss it exactly.
Yes, whereas the pet can't say, oh yes, I really want this chemotherapy, but so you as an owner are their advocate, and you think, okay, well look, actually if they can withstand a little bit of treatment and maybe live a bit longer, a happy life and a healthy life, then why not? So I agree with you. I think I suppose it's all everyone's personal choice, but I think it's nice that you have the option of being able to do that for your pet.
Yeah, absolutely. Veterinary medicine is just so advanced, isn't it, these days?
And do you still practice at all?
I am a veterinary pathologist, so I deal with the biopsies. So
wow.
Yeah, so when a tumour appears or there's a skin lesion or something going on, a sample will be taken and it will be sent to the lab. And I could be one of the people looking at that and making the diagnosis.
Oh my goodness, that's fascinating.
That is pathology, yes.
Do you miss the interaction between the pets and the owners and yourself?
I don't mind too much. I work with a really, really lovely team of people.
Yeah.
And I really like that side of things, because with pathology, you tend to get the answer as well.
Yeah.
So in practice, yes, you do get the answer, but sometimes you're a little bit limited. Somebody may not be able to go through all the tests. If the pet's not insured or whatever, all these difficult decisions. But at least when you get the biopsy, hopefully you will know what's wrong, and that's quite satisfying to recommend treatment.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
All these different divisions, cardiology, oncology, and pathology. Yeah. So it's all there in veterinary medicine.
And do you cover the whole of the United Kingdom? Would you cover?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we do. So we've got samples coming in from Northern Ireland.
Oh my word.
Which I love to see.
I'm sure. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do, because it's funny, because Rob, his wife, she's a veterinary cardiologist as well. So the two of them, they've just got so much experience between them, But and now I've got a pathologist as well. This is great.
You've got the full range for your pets, because you do have two dogs, don't you? Tilly and Snowy.
Yes, I do, and they're absolute sweethearts.
And what breeds are they?
So Snowy is a greyhound. So I got another greyhound, after Rusty, because I'd find Rusty walking the streets, and he was just the sweetest dog. And I would never have thought of getting a greyhound before that, but I found him wandering the streets, and I brought him home. And once we realised, I think he'd had about 6 different owners by the time I got him, because they had the little tattoos in the ears, so we could find out a bit about him. And he was only about 2 whenever I got him. A really lovely dog, like Bambi. He looked like Bambi. He was big and he was smooth, very gentle. And so whenever he died, I thought I will get another greyhound, because I suppose greyhounds often hopefully end up at least in kennels, because the alternative is pretty grim. But they are in kennels quite a lot, and maybe not necessarily the first choice for a lot of people looking for a dog. So I thought, do you know what? I will keep getting greyhounds. So I've got lovely black and white Snowy. And she's a dote. She's about 6 now. And I have Tilly, the little Jack Russell, who is just has the heart of a lion, like Jack Russells so often do. And they're just wonderful.
So there's quite a contrast in personality then between them.
Yes, height and personality, yes. We're quite the sight walking up the road in the morning.
So, Anne-Marie, how did you end up getting into media and working at Radio Ulster?
Gosh, so I studied newspaper journalism originally, and I worked down at the Morning Observer newspaper in Newcastle, and I did a little stint at the Newton Abbey Times, and then I came into the newsroom way back in the early 2000s and got to work on BBC Newsline and stuff like that. And it was lovely. But what I used to do on a late shift when it was quiet, I would go into the little news studio where our newsreaders would still read out the news to this day. And I would practice in front of their scripts and just practice reading, and how I would sound in front of the microphone and getting used to hearing myself in front of the microphone. And then from there, I did packages for Sunday Sequence and the Art Show and the John Toll Show. And so learnt about editing on a system called Dalit, and that's our playout system as well. So got across that. And then got a job up in Studio 8, which is where I'm sitting tonight in our studios here. So all our non-news programmes come from these studios. So Gardener's Corner, On Your Behalf, Connor Phillips, Hugo Duncan until he went up to Foyle. So loads of really well-known programmes come from here. And so I learned to mix music when bands would come in, and I would drive live programmes and I would edit. And it still is just the most lovely job. I still get excited about walking through the doors of the BBC and getting to come up to the studio and seeing lovely people. I work with really, really nice people. And then about 4 years ago, I got asked would I cover a show, like an hour-long fill-in on a early morning, probably. I think it was over Christmas it was. So it was 7 to 8 a.m. slot. And I was so nervous. I honestly thought I don't know, I just thought I was going to have a heart attack. I was sweaty and my mouth was really dry and I just had to drink water. I must have drank about 5 glasses of water in that hour. But people texted in and were nice. And it was the most lovely feeling to think that somebody was sitting at home and just listening to you and not switching off and liking your music or even just liking what you were saying. And we're very conscious here, I think probably as a station anyway, that a lot of our listeners, especially through COVID, were sitting at home on their own. And radio is that lovely medium where you really feel like you're connecting with the audience. And whether they text in or not, there is that connection. So I've been lucky over the years to get to cover quite a few different slots and fill in for Connor Phillips or fill in for the early morning shows or in the evening between 6 o'clock and 7:30. And people seem to text in and seem to like what I do some of the time, but I would tell them a lot about myself, which is probably why you know so much about me, because I'm terrible for talking about things that have been happening. But I also think, well, sure, at least if silly things happen to me, I'm like, oh, I'll have to remember to tell the listeners that the next time I have a wee slot, So I hope that people like it, but I love doing it, and long may it continue. Who knows? You never know. But I've
that's
enjoyed
wonderful.
It.
That's wonderful to be doing something that you love so much as well.
No, I'm very lucky.
Oh, fantastic. You are. But something I didn't know about you was that you're also really passionate about street art. Oh, so how did that happen?
Well, so Belfast in particular is blessed with the most wonderful amount of street art, really gorgeous drawings on gable ends and walls all over the city. And during lockdown, I'd be walking to and from work, and remember we had those first few months of lockdown. It was so sunny and beautiful. Do you remember that? It was gorgeous.
That's right.
So nice. And so I walked around a lot, and down by the Sunflower Bar in Belfast, down in Kent Street, is the hub really of all the newest talent and the best art you could possibly find. Belfast as a city is probably one of the strongest cities for street art now in the whole world. It's just amazing. But there's a festival called Hit the North, which comes to Belfast every year. But this particular year it came in September because of COVID, and it was a boiling day, and the streets were open. And it was great because obviously it was COVID time, but it was outside. All the street artists were wearing those big masks. Everyone was able to distance from each other. And it was just this almost party atmosphere. So since then, I have just been obsessed with the gorgeous street art that pops up. It doesn't just pop up, by accident. There's a guy called Adam Turkington who is the heart of the street art scene here in Northern Ireland, and he's the one who brings in artists from really all over the world. He's an incredible character, and it just that's why I love it so much, because you don't know how long it's going to be there. Tomorrow, this beautiful piece of art could be gone forever, and something could be in its place.
Oh, it's marvellous, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do remember I went on a taxi tour around the murals in Belfast.
Yeah.
And I really would recommend it. I mean, I know I'm originally from Northern Ireland, and I'm County Antrim, but I've never been around to see all the murals.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. But they also respond to issues that are going on, don't they? You get like some of the journalists at the moment. We've got the awful situation in Gaza, and I know there were these tremendous murals that they put up commemorating the journals and the people.
Yeah. Oh, this is it. I mean, obviously we have the political murals here as well. That's all we had for a long time, and yet now whatever's happening on a weekly basis, that's how quickly these pieces of art can go up and then as quickly go down again as well. It's just, and it's
wonderful.
It's interesting though, because the Lara McKee piece of art that's down on Kent Street, it has never been painted over. It has been kept. I don't think it ever will either. But it's kept just like a shrine to her, which is lovely as well. There's that respect too.
Yes. Oh, amazing. Do you do any art yourself?
No, I'm not artistic at all. I'm afraid. I wish I was. I have spray cans at home, and I have gone out to the back and taken my kids out the back, and we have spray painted stuff and pieces of wood and all sorts. But no, I'm not particularly artistic. I used to make patchwork quilts, but I can't draw anything at all. I'm absolutely terrible. So I'm just envious of all these people, all these wonderful street artists we have here.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, I haven't heard of anything so kind of vibrant and reactive on the mainland. I don't know. Do you know any famous artists over here?
Obviously we have Banksy over in the mainland, and I think he's in fact my kids were studying Banksy in school, so that's how
he's in the curriculum. That's amazing. He's in
the curriculum, so that's how well known Banksy is. There's obviously there's different, like Glasgow in particular. It's great for street art. If you're ever going up to Glasgow, look out for the street art up there. Also Brighton is great for street art, and loads of little pockets of London. You can go. Oh, where was it I went to recently as well? I can't even remember where it was now. Oh, it's going to annoy me. It'll come to me, of course, after we've chatted, But there's a girl here. She's Australian originally, and her name's Danny Simpson, and her street art is everywhere in Northern Ireland. She is an absolute dynamo. She is just brilliant, and you've probably gone past bars with her murals on the sides of the bars as well. But she always has a little market down at the Christmas market at Christmas as well, and she sells her little paintings. And I've got one of New York, which I absolutely love, because I got married in New York. So
did you? Oh, that's.
So I have that in a little frame in my living room, and I absolutely love it. And she's got the little map of New York City, and then the main tourist attractions, I suppose. It's you wouldn't use it to find your way around New York. It's not that
not that detailed.
No, but it's just a lovely piece of art. And every time I look at that, it brings me back to that wedding. In a very small wedding, let me tell you.
And you're also very talented in the field of stand-up comedy. So you were at the Comedy Store in London, weren't you, last year?
Jenny, you are unbelievable at your research.
I know everything about you now, don't I? And you were on the stage, so you escaped the studio.
Yes. So this all came about because we have a series called Community Life on BBC Northern Ireland. And I'd never done anything for TV before. And there's this lovely guy called Ali Mackenzie, and he'd said to me, "Will you make a piece for Community Life about street vets?" So there's we went down and we did a piece about the vets who come down to look after the homeless people's animals. So they check them out once a month, and weigh them and give them any tablets they need. It's just wonderful. So off the back of that, then Ali said, "Would you like to do another piece?" And I was like, "Sure. What do you want me to do?" And he said, "Would you like to try stand-up comedy?" And I was like, "I would not, but I'll do it anyway." so I had Darren Matthews, who's a wonderful comedian from just outside Newry, and he was my mentor. And I had to write a 5-minute piece and then perform it at McCooey's in Newry, which was absolutely terrifying. And I thought, well, do you know what? If I've done it once and I've done it for TV, I might as well do it again. So I've done it about 15 times now. And then, as you say, there was that one time I decided to go to London and try it at the Comedy Store. And oh my word, the audience were savages. Oh. They were savages. Our audiences are so polite here. The audience were heckling and saying all sorts to all the poor comedians. And I was sitting there thinking, I can't go up. My legs aren't going to bring me up onto the stage. But I managed to get myself up on stage, and I managed not to be too insulted by everything that people were saying. And people were nice as well. But since then, I've been less scared of doing the stand-up comedy here because our audiences, as I say, are so nice. So I do a bit of the stand-up comedy. I don't think Shane Todd or any of our other local comedians or anyone bigger than that is going to have anything to worry about. But it's a fun little sideline to do occasionally.
That's great. So we may see more of you on the comedy line.
Maybe we'll see. It's I don't think it's going to be my new career, but it's a nice little hobby, I think.
And what is next for you in 2024?
Well, imminently, I am going to London. I decided I wanted to take myself off to London for 24 hours in a kind of Carrie Bradshaw type way, where I just go and do nice things for 24 hours because it's been a bit stressful sometimes. As I say, I have 3 kids and I have 2 dogs, and I've been quite busy in work. And I was like, can I just go away for 24 hours? And I'm going to bring my roller skates, and I'm going to roller skate in Hyde Park.
Oh, fantastic!
I'm going to do that, and I'm actually going to interview a chef as well for one of the programs I'm filling in for soon. I'm interviewing a chef called Ed Smith. He's a solicitor turned chef, so I'm going to chat to him as well. And I think I'm probably just going to go and walk around and enjoy the wonderful architecture and the street art in London. Brick Lane is where that's where the street art is.
You've remembered. Good.
Yes. And beyond that, apart from the roller skating in Hyde Park, hopefully just continuing to fill in the odd show here and there on Radio Ulster. They'll wheel me out when they need me to fill in, and hopefully, fingers crossed, a 4th series of All Right Pet this year. I think it's on the cards, so it's just about getting dates for that, and then contacting Ricky Gervais again so that he can turn me down again.
You never know. He may hear you on this podcast and say that's where I've got to be.
Well, the good thing is I already have one guest lined up, don't I, Jenny?
Oh, absolutely. No, I was just wondering, was it an official offer?
Oh, absolutely was. If I said it, I meant it. Yes. So you know, you will be on series 4 of All Right Pet.
Okay. I shall look forward to that very much.
Well, me too.
I have very, very much enjoyed talking to you, Anne-Marie. It's been too short, and there's a lot more to talk about between the two of us. So thank you so much for being on the Reverend Vet podcast, and have a wonderful 2024 and enjoy your roller skating in London.
Thank you, Jenny. It's been an absolute treat to talk to you too. Thank you.